Didn't know who he was. Who are you, sir? Are you registered for this course? All right. What is religion? Well, didn't we already talk about that yesterday? What is religion? I made this little picture here, of a blue elephant. One person, people looking at the elephant. Maybe this is a female, maybe that's a male, who knows? Why does this indicate a woman? I guess is that supposed to be a dress? Well, maybe it's just a person with wide hips. Not right. Yeah, I mean, maybe a triangle was drawing the picture. It drew it like a triangle. And then, of course, you've got, in the middle, it's gray. Could be both. Be a mixture of black or white. Or, yellow and red. It's green, right? No, that's orange. Blue and yellow is green. So, but I just went with black and white colors. I think it's white. I think it's black. I think the elephant is gray. But in reality, is the elephant either of those? No, it's blue. Yes, blue is good. So they're all wrong. Yeah. They're all right that it's a color, but they're all wrong. I based my picture on, there's an old story. It comes from religion, Jainism. We'll hear about that later. Hopefully, I was listening to Sam Harris, one of the people we're going to read about or listen to, is a neuroscientist. Talks a lot about religion, is against it, thinks it's violent. Anyways, or some religions are violent. He was talking about the difference between, say, Islam is a violent religion and Jainism, which traditionally is a very small religion. It's from India, comes from India. It's about 4 or 5 million people, not a lot of people. Nonviolence is one of the cornerstones of the Jainist religion, not harming any living creature, not just humans, but bugs or anything that might be sentient, trees, stuff like that. But there's an old story about truth, a parable, you might say, about truth. How do you know the truth? And it's a story of 3 blind men, or it could be blind women. I'm using men in the general sense of English here, not necessarily restricted. The 3 blind people who feel an elephant, and one has hold of the tail, one is feeling the side, the skin, and the other has a hold of the trunk. Of course, they're blind, so they can't see the elephant. So then you ask them, well, what do you have? Well, they each have a piece of the elephant. One person, so they got maybe, I guess the parable's trying to say that all religions are all peoples, a piece of the truth. We're all ultimately blind, though, because, we all don't know the ultimate truth, but we think we do. And the blind man with the tail thinks, well, tell me what an elephant is. Well, an elephant is like a rope, has the tail. Or an elephant is like a big scratchy tree, or scratchy, because the skin is all hard and scratchy, rough and scratchy. Or, the guy's got the trunk, and he's like, the trunk says. What would you think a trunk could be, I don't know what it is, but anyway, but you get the point, each one kind of has the tail, has the trunk, is touching the skin, but, misinterprets it, because they're blind. So that's what I kind of based my picture on. What is religion? I think it's this, I think it's that. Do we actually even know? Is it just blue? I won't dwell too much on this because we already kind of did it when we talked about the football game. But this is a quote from a man named Augustine. He's an African gentleman from North Africa, lived in North Africa in the around the 4th to 5th century A.D. I haven't put his dates here at all. No, I didn't put his dates here. No, we'll write him on the board. He lived from 354 to 430 A.D. 354 to 430 A.D. or C.E., depending on what you want to do with it. So that's when he was alive, North Africa. He was a bishop. He was a Christian author, a Christian thinker. Wrote a lot of stuff. And he made this famous comment in his book called The Confessions, which is the first autobiography ever written by, as far as we know, by any human being. I mean, people wrote histories and stuff like that, but they didn't really write about themselves and their own personal history. So he wrote this book about his conversion to Christianity, his life before being a Christian, and how he was converted and stuff like that. And so he's confessing, he's telling you his sins and stuff like that, in a manner of speaking, but his journey. So it's an autobiography. Would anyone like to read this quote from him that he makes in the Confessions? Book 11 of the Confessions. I'd like to read this quote from St. Augustine of Hippo. Which bishop was called Hippo Regis. Huh? Yeah. All of it.
All of it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. What is time? Can you explain who even in thought can comprehend it? Or when it's speaking to be referred to more from you and knowing that time? But certainly we understand when we speak it. We understand also when we hear it spoken by another. But then it's time. If no one asks of me, I know. If I wish to explain to them who ask, I don't know.
I know too. All right, this is not an actual picture of Augustine. You can see when it was done in the 500s AD. So, at least it's a century or and a half after Augustine. So I don't know if he looked like this, but this is just a little picture of it. It'd be something to look at, think of, or some image to put in your head. Anyways, Augustine. And I've already gone over this, or we've kind of talked about this, but there's just a famous quote with the same idea of time. He just uses the example of time. God bless. If I ask you what time is it, you'll tell me, right? You'll look at your phone, or you'll look at the clock. But how do you even know to do that? How do you know what I'm talking about? It's a concept. I can't show you time. It's not something I can show you. Just like I showed you the color, you saw the color blue with the elephant, right? But if you said, well, show me the color blue. Well, how do I do that? What do I show you? I can point to his shirt, but still, your shirt is blue, right? How do I know? That's the question he's asking. He's thinking about it, No one asks me. Of course, I go about my daily life, my business, and I know exactly what time is. Show up on time, or I know if I'm late or whatever. But if someone then stops me and says, yes, but what really is time itself? I don't know. I have to think. Oh, we don't want to do that. That's not what you're here for. I have to think about it. Give an explanation. Does anyone have an idea? What do you think time is? Just out of curiosity, what do you think time is? What do you think, Mr. Dobson? What do you think time is?
In what sense?
What do you mean, what sense? What do you mean, what sense? Time is time, right? Could use it as a verb, like timing something.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like.
But what are you doing when you time something? Like at a sporting event,
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting. So it's time, space, kind of space. Ooh, interesting. Time and space. Time and space kind of coexist. I mean, are they? Interesting, sir. Yes. Interesting. Look, what is time? It's a fundamental part of the universe, time, space. And you're onto something there, Mr. Dobson, because like Einstein, he didn't even talk about time and space. It was time hyphen space. It's like two sides of the same coin. Time and space are kind of the same in a way. They're melded together. Once you have space, then you have time. So you could say that once the universe emerged, then you had time. Once you had matter, you had time because it's measurable. Anyways, we know what it is, and we know what a lot of things are, but we don't. If I asked you to stop and explain them, you have to think. Why is that? I don't understand that. Because how can we function? I don't know how I function. Knowing with all these concepts that I just seem to know what to do with them, but if you ask me to explain them, I become mute. It becomes hard. Same thing applies to religion. It's a word that people use. If I asked you, when we looked at the football game, was that a religious event or an athletic event? I'm going to assume that not one person here would have said religious event. You would have all said athletic. And then I would ask, well, how do you know? Which I did. How do you know? You just know, like with time. So what do religious people who study religion, who are called religious studies scholars, what do they think? Not much. I'm of the opinion that just because I don't know how to define something doesn't mean that no definition is possible. Okay? I have an experience of time. That's the word, we give it in our language. But just because I have difficulty, maybe expressing what I think time is, it doesn't mean it's impossible to define it. Maybe it is, but I'd have to first try to define it and fail many, many times. It still doesn't necessarily mean it's undefinable or indefinable. It just means I've failed at defining it. Just like, Thomas Edison. How many hundreds of filaments did he try out for his first light bulb before he got the right one? It was like 400 or something, hundreds of attempts with all different types of kinds of filaments for his first light bulb. And he found one that worked the best, I should say. Maybe others worked well, but not as good. He could have stopped at 399 and said, okay, I failed. This is impossible. But then he didn't. 400th one, he hit it. The same thing with the definition. I might say, okay, I've been trying to define this for 20 odd years. I still can't come up with a really good definition. Maybe it's indefinable. I'll give it another 5 years, see what happens. You never know. You might have a eureka moment or something, an enlightenment moment. Many religious studies scholars nowadays are unsure of what religion is. They don't know what religion is. And they're not even sure whether defining it is possible. So you have this famous religious studies scholar. Here's this picture, Jonathan Z. Smith, Z for Zettel. I guess it's his middle name. I don't know what it's based on, but usually just known as Jonathan Z. Smith. Very famous. He's dead now. May he rest in peace. But he wrote a lot. And he was one of those, a big proponent of this, that, religion really doesn't mean anything. It's just a word that was made up. Religion, quote unquote, religion is a category that Western scholars created, the Western Academy, to classify and analyze discrete cultural artifacts, which is a fancy way of saying bits of data from different cultures that they encountered of human existence. But religion itself really has no existence of its own. It's a conception of the universities, the eggheads, the scholars, who wanted to take all this data that they couldn't classify as politics, they couldn't classify it as art, they couldn't classify it as, what else? Sports, okay, or literature. So they classified it as religion. It seemed to fit into this idea of religion, okay? So that's what he argues in his book called Imagining Religion,
I don't have the book here. I don't think I put the book on the PowerPoint slide, just this picture. But yeah, in 1982, he wrote a book called Imagining Religion, how religion is really just imagined by moderns. It's not something that would have meant anything to people in the past. They didn't even have a word for religion in a lot of cultures, which is not exactly true, but okay. So it has no existence of its own. And I've encountered this, I've taught world religions before and other venues, and I've used different textbooks. This is one of the textbooks I used, Introduction to Religious Studies, edited by Meyer. What's his name here? Paul Meyer. Okay, interesting. And I don't really use it that much anymore because in the book, he talks about that religious studies is more of a study of human activities that we call religious. Okay, so it's like anthropological stuff. It's stuff that humans do, humans do a lot of other things, but these specific things we call religious. We just call them religious. They're not necessarily or naturally religious. There's no essential religious quality. We call them that. The name we've given it. Or scholars have their own self-definition or self-consciousness of what they think a religion is. Their own self-definition. Religion is, I don't know, any kind of community or something like that. They look at it from that perspective in some cases. But really, ultimately, Meyer is like, there's no definition of religion that I'm going to give for this textbook, and I'm not even going to encourage it. So basically, figure it out for yourself, and whatever, the people who are writing the chapters in this textbook, it's supposed to be a textbook teaching you about religious studies, studying of religion, whatever, from chapter to chapter, what a religion is can vary because the scholar might have his or her own definition of what a religion is. Yeah, that didn't seem too helpful to me when I was using the textbook, Mr. Klitsch. Because I'm like, why am I buying your textbook and assigning it to my students when you don't even know what you're talking about? You admit up front, there's no such thing as really religion. It's just a word, and it can mean all sorts of different things. All right, well, you know what? Maybe I'll pay my money or get an exam copy of someone whose book does seem to know. Because if I'm in biology class and they're like, well, we really don't know what life is. This is the study of life, yes, bios, life and the study of biology. But you know what? Each biologist, for himself or herself, kind of defines what life is. So as you're reading this textbook on biology, from chapter to chapter, it might change the definition of what biology is. Okay. How do you come to any knowledge then? It can mean anything that you want. Because if it can mean anything, then it ultimately means nothing, in a manner of speaking. Yeah, this is another book. I think this was like the first textbook I used, Patterns of Religion. I was teaching at Iona College, now Iona University, New Rochelle, New York. I think this was the first one I used. Run into the same problem. It's a textbook. Patterns of Religion. The editors are like, there's no such thing as religion in general. There really isn't. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, did you read the title of the book before you put it out there? Well, maybe the publisher insisted. I don't know. But did you read the title? You're looking for patterns of religion. But there's no such thing as religion. So what patterns can you find? To me, this is just bizarre. It's bizarre. How can you write books on religious studies or religion itself in the title and then say at the outset that, well, we're not going to define it, or it really doesn't exist. There really is no such thing. So why are you wasting my time? And it's a field killer, really. It kills your field. I mean, because money. I mean, to have a whole department of religious studies at a university or college, you got to hire people. They have maybe have a secretary to help out and stuff. So it's money. That's an investment. Why am I investing money in a department of religious studies where all the people in the department, you ask them what their field is, what they're really studying. Well, we don't know. There's no real thing such as religion. You know, what we do is we use anthropology and psychology and sociology, and we study these things that appear in human societies that we call religion, but that's just a term we're using. It's like, okay, so why don't we just close your department and, I don't know, have the anthropology department teach a course on religion or something, or the psychology or sociology department. You know, we don't need a whole department of religious studies specializing in something that people don't know what it is. So they close them down. So it's a field kill. You're killing your own field. You're, you know, kind of writing yourself out of existence talking yourself, or I should say in this case, thinking themselves out of a job, which maybe is for the best. This, why do I have this? Did I put this, or was I just going to read this? I got this quote from Jonathan Z. Smith, famous quote. If you read about what is religion, then you'll stumble across it all the time. But I have another quote here on my, I don't know if I put it on the PowerPoint or I was going to read it. Okay. Who would like to read this quote? This is from Jonathan Z. Smith's Imagining Religion. From the introduction, page 11, XI. From Babylon to Jonestown. Would like to read this quote from Dr. Pulgani, Dr. Smith. Listen. Would like to read it? Or? No. That's fine. That's fine. Let's anyone's name shoot up. Anybody? Right, are you out, sir? Are you with Mr. What? What is he really out? What am I going to do with you, sir? All right, let's read some Jonathan Z. Smith, sir. Right up there.
We have understood the archaeology and actual record correctly made. Entire
Do you want to come up?
I mean,
You can come up. Come on. What? This is far away. What do we got? There you go.
Imagine deities and models of an interaction with them, but man more, let's say, precisely
Yeah.
Western man has had only the last few centuries in which to imagine religion. It is the act of second order reflective of imagination, which most be the central preoccupation of data and of the, let's say,
Any student of religion.
he's doing religion. That is to say, while there is a stagnant amount of data of phenomenon of human experience or expression that might be characterized in one culture or another by one criterion or another as a religious. There is no data for religion.
No data.
Solely the creation of scholar study is created for scholars, analytic purposes by independent existence apart from academic academy. For this reason, the student of religion, and most particularly the pursuers of religion, must be relentless subconscious. Indeed, this subconscious constitutes itself primary, especially this is this foremost objects of study.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Okay. There's really no data for religion, no evidence for religion. It's a construct. It's constructed by scholars, okay, who take human experiences and then kind of cram it into this idea of religion. He said it's solely the creation of the scholar's study. Okay, so that you can study it. You know, now I can academically study it. It's to my purpose. Okay, but but it's really not there. You know, you have to remember it's a second order. Where does he say that? Where's the act? It's an act of the second order. The act of the first order is the experience. Okay? But then the reflection, it constitutes the second order. I reflect on what have I experienced? And then I want to give a word to that experience. So Western scholars gave it the word religion. The religion. Oh, that's why. Okay, no, I don't see that. I would say I'm not a religious studies scholar, but I did belong to the American Academy of Religion. But anyways, just because a category was created to identify something, which I can see his point that a category was created. I don't think it was created out of nothing. The word religion was around before then. It's not like they made up the word. But just because a category was created to identify something does not mean that there wasn't something there to identify in the first place. You experienced something. And then you're trying to, so as a second order, you're trying to categorize it. Well, was it politics? Was it political? Was it athletic? Or game? What was it? Was it musical? Was it music? All sorts of things of human experience. And as you're going through, you're like, no, it's not that. No, it wasn't that. No, it wasn't that. Even if it includes characteristics of that, like religious ceremonies, a lot of them include music, right? Singing, organ playing, guitar playing, all sorts of stuff. Dancing. There's dance involved in some religious activities. But I know it's not dancing, really, even though they did get up and dance. I know it's not music, even though someone was there playing the sitar. Ding, 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 ding. You go to an Indian restaurant, you hear the sitar music and playing ding, ding. Oh, can't wait to get paid, because like the first thing I'm going to do, one of the first things is buy Indian food. Go out and buy Indian food. There's an Indian restaurant on the way down here. I keep wanting to try it out. Anyways, but it's not music. Yeah, there may have been some jumping up and down, movements and stuff like that, but it wasn't an exercise class. So you're eliminating the things from your experience. I experienced this, but you're just eliminating what you've experienced maybe these other things and it doesn't fit in. I think that's legitimate. I mean, just because it's a modern invention of the West. Ooh. Booga, 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 booga. It's Western. Okay, fine. I like some of the modern inventions of the West, I like modern medicine. I like computers, For the most part. I like some of these modern inventions. I like an automobile. So it's a modern invention. Okay, musicology, the study of music. I don't know if any of you are into music. We don't have a music program here at the school, do we? Oh, we had some piano downstairs. No, maybe it wasn't a piano. Well, we don't have. I forget if we have a music program here. I have to look it up. I don't know if we do. They just did? Okay.
It's like guitar.
And guitar. Okay. But there are people who actually not just practically play music, but they're theoreticians of music as well. Musicians who will write about the theory of music and singing, or playing the violin or the guitar or something like that. So the study of music, people study the history of music and the culture of music. Different cultures have different forms of music. Okay. And again, that's a modern invention. And it's a Western invention. It started in amongst European academics to specifically study music. But no one that I know of that I haven't come across anyone who based on that evidence at least, that argues that music doesn't exist or that it only exists as an academic activity. You know, we have a program for music studies, but you go there and you're like, oh, what's music? You know, well, it's whatever you want it to be. We don't know. We're not sure. That was made up in the 1800s by a bunch of white guys from Europe. So you know how that's going. Okay, maybe it was. But it's still, I think, a valid category. And I'd say this, I would argue the same thing for religious studies, that music is also something, you know, that people study as an academic reality. Even if it's hard to define, if I ask you, what is music? Define it for me. Because it is so different, you know? Music can be from a full symphony orchestra to someone banging on a can, you know? It's a form of music. So it's very diverse. So just because religion is very diverse and it incorporates all sorts of different things, does that mean no definition is possible? I think definitions are good things. I like definitions. As you probably know, well, at least you'll figure out for the quiz, Mr. Ruddle. So I ask a lot of definitions, so I got to ask some. So a lot of multiple choice and stuff like that, the definition. But I just know what it does for me. It helps me to understand. So I'm not just doing it to do it because I want to give something testable, but it helps me clear up my mind so I can then hopefully explain it to you. And in the process, it also exposes areas where I'm not so sure, you know, so that I can admit to you, like, okay, I think it's this. This is clear to me, but on these other things, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure about what this is or how it connects. So, but it clarifies. I think they're good things. Okay, a definition sets boundaries to our. Whoa. Okay. Oh, I did put his quote on here, but I'll skip over that. It sets boundaries. Definio, Latin, means to set a limit or a boundary. Definio, an end, a limit. Miss Krause, yes. And that's what a definition does. It's a statement that we create. People make these statements, okay, to describe what something is. So you know what it is not. No? An animal can have a head, 4 legs, and a tail. That's a definition, but it's not a good definition because it's too broad, right? Including too many things, too many animals. Cows, cats, dogs, a giraffe, It's too broad. Okay, so then you need to limit the definition. Your boundary's too broad. Okay, so you need a more limited definition. All right, let's say an animal or the type of animal you're trying to describe. The same thing just with religion. We don't want too broad a definition, so it includes absolutely everything that humans do. We want to, kind of boil it down to this: is there one or several characteristics that make it religious and not something else? So we're setting limits for our thinking, disciplining our thinking. And remembering that a definition is a tool. It's an instrument we're using. Yes, it can be constructed by the academy or by anybody, but just recognize that it is a tool. It brings order to our mental behavior and to the way we speak. So we're more specific, okay? Probably noticed that about myself. I try to be very specific about what I say, not so generalized. Try to correct myself sometimes when I speak too generally. So bringing order to my concepts, clarity to unreflective thought or even confusion. You might have a bunch of thoughts that are all competing. And you kind of like, okay, let's write them down or set them and lay them out. And then, okay, think through each one and see if they work. You may have to get rid of some or include others that you didn't think of. Did I do that? Maybe I did. So a definition, a definition, uh, Miss Colonna? Okay, oh, good. Miss Haran. I know this is going to be tough, ladies, but just stick with me, please. You didn't think you were going to come into a whole class lecture on definitions. The dictionary. Yes. What does a definition well, I have to address it because this is a problem. It's an issue. You know, can we define religion? Well, we have to understand what a definition is first in order to do it, to get there. So with a definition, you have what's called a genus, a referent, and a differentia. Just like genus and species. Homo sapiens. Our genus is Homo, man, but we're not the only homines, plural in Latin. We are not the only homines that have been on this planet. There have been Neanderthals, Cro-Magnon, Australopithecus. There have been different iterations of the Homo genus, and even Homo sapiens. But we are Homo sapiens sapiens, technically. We're I guess the human beings who really know. Whereas the Neanderthal were maybe not as smart as we were, the Cro-Magnon. So you have a genus and a species. The cat is what, a Felinus domesticus. The dog, Canis domesticus, domesticated dog. But there are other types of dogs in the genus. You know, all sorts of wild dogs and all sorts of other dogs that are Canis in that genus. So, I mean, genus, let's let the word general or gene, you know, generalized, the overarching thing. What is something basically? What type is it? That's the genus. So, genus, and you can also call it here a class. Right? But, you know, other ways that people talk about it. Like an emotion. Let's talk about here about love. Let's say this word love. What's its genus? Well, it's basically an emotion, a feeling that I have, like a mental and physical feeling is what love is generally, hence genus. Genus, Miss Krause, generis. See, in Latin, you got to learn two forms sometimes because it changes a little bit. Genus is the nominative. The possessive is the genitive form is generis. Generis. General. So generally, it's an emotion. But now what's its referent? Or referent, what is it referred to? What does it refer to? What does it connect up with? Man, animal, thing, a group? Okay, what does love as an emotion belong to? What is its species? The genus, love, it's an emotion, but what is its species? Well, I mean, other animals can have emotions too. Oh, my doggy loves me. Or you go on YouTube, go on YouTube and see the people who try to get their dog to say, I love you. You know, they put their fingers in their mouth and telling them, okay, bark, I love you, I love you. They put it up on YouTube Shorts or something. I hope my cat loves me. She doesn't say it enough, but I should give you licks. So I'm assuming her little kisses. But you never know with a cat. Because she can retain her love. If the food dish is not full, then I know she doesn't love me. But she certainly loves me after it's full. Anyways, a species. But what is this? We usually apply this to us, humans. And we apply it to other things analogously. Yeah, my dog loves me. Yeah. But, I mean, yes, okay, maybe the dog has some kind of emotion towards you, and positive emotion. Okay, I'm not denying that. But is it love the same way that, my parents love? Maybe. You love me more than you love the dog, more than you love me. Got a point there, son. Well, dog doesn't crash the car and get tickets. 300,000 years of human development. This is what we evolved for. Referent, it's human. Its species is human. It's an emotion, yes, but other animals can have that emotion. But it's a specifically human emotion. That's the referent of love. And then differentia, characteristics. It's a fancy Latin word for difference. Characteristics of love. Different kinds of love. What makes love special? What distinguishes this human emotion from other human emotions? Because there are other human emotions that we know of that are not love. Okay? So, well, listen, and there are different types. I mean, there's friendship, pure friendship with a person whom you love and you're very close to. But it's not a sexual relationship. It's not a marriage or just a sexual relationship, but you're very good friends. Altruism, just doing good to people that you don't know. You love them, but you don't love them sexually. Maybe you don't even know who they are, so they're not friends. But you show them love by giving them benefits or doing good things. You can love a country, patriotism. And then we get into the sexual, eroticism, eros, the Greek word for love. Well, Greek had several words for love with these distinctions. We don't in English, we pretty much just use the word love. But eros was specifically sexual attraction love, And there are other forms of love as well. So now there are differentia, things that characterize or characteristics of love, or how, I guess, love, the concept can be broken apart and applied to different specific issues or situations. So what is it basically, the genus? What does it refer to specifically? And then how can it be differentiated? Okay? How can it be distinguished from other things, other emotions? Is there anything uniting all these things that we call love? Okay. So I'm going to give another, thought I had another definition. So we talk about, there are two kinds of definition, two ways we can go with definition. Monothetic or polythetic. Mono means one, you probably know this already. Monos means one in Greek. You probably know that polus means many. So polythetic and monothetic, it had you looking for a single characteristic from the differentia, or the list of characteristics. And polythetic is simply you're looking for many, a cluster of characteristics, a set of features or properties, several of which are present that you're looking for. Sometimes it's pretty easy. You can identify one thing. A monothetic definition does it for you, okay? Like love is a human emotion of affection, You feel good about somebody, or you could say attraction as well. You're attracted to that person sexually, emotionally, or whatever. You feel good. Don't put it materialistic or physicalistic. You feel good being around that person, okay? If you don't feel good, then it's not love, I don't think so. Well, not normal love. Let's put it this way, because people, I'm sure you've heard of abusive relationships. I love you. Why do you stay with him? He does this stuff to you. It makes you feel bad about yourself. But I love him. But we know that that's a distorted love, right? That's why we call them abusive relationships. So we tell people, get help, counseling or something. So, I mean, there's the normal definition, but then there are always outliers, exceptions that prove the rule, I think. So sometimes it just one single characteristic is enough. And at its most basic, I think if we wanted a monothetic definition, you know, we could, for example, give as an example E.B. Tyler, Edward Burnett Tyler. Is that Mr. Henry? No, that's Mr. Henry. It's Mr. Mr. Henry? Sorry. I know it's going to take time. I'm sorry, sir. What did Tyler say when we went over the definitions last class? Edward Burnett Tyler, the famous father of anthropology, modern anthropology. He said religion is the belief in what? Very simple, monothetic. Does anyone remember? Mr. Park? Mr. Park. Mr. Moon? Do you remember what E.B. Tyler said? No, you do not, sir. Well, that's fine. That's worth a check anyways. Let's see. Miss Lazarus? Lazarus? What do you think, Miss Lazarus? You don't remember? Oh, yes, Mr. Wright. Spiritual. Yeah, spiritual beings.
Yes.
Good, sir.
Yeah.
God bless you, Mr. Ruddle. Spiritual beings, belief in spirits, period. That's it. That was his minimal definition of religion. Monothetic, straight to the point. But, you know, I think we know, I think we know that religion is a little bit more complex than just that. There are religions that aren't really big on spirits at all. Most religions are, I think. But, you know, traditional Buddhism is not real. I mean, the Buddha believed in the gods and the spirits, but they had nothing to do with him. You could care less about what they were doing. He was concerned about man's plight, the suffering of human beings. That's all he cared about. So some scholars, even still today, debate whether Buddhism is really a religion per se. It does develop into a religion, I think. But was it more of a philosophy or an ethic? Because, you know, the Buddha didn't care that much about questions about, well, what's God or the afterlife. So a little more complex than just saying it's the belief in spiritual beings. Although the Buddha did seem to believe in spiritual beings, he just didn't care about them. They weren't his problem. So think of Geertz's definition. Remember, Geertz had like 5 different things. It's almost, in my opinion, overload, too many things in his definition. But that's a good example of a polythetic definition. He has a cluster of things that all of them or most of them, if they are present, you're probably dealing with a religion. All of these characteristics. And sociology, anyone taking sociology? Any sociologists here taking sociology? Well, if you're taking like mental health or social services, you have to take sociology classes, don't you? No? You?
I took this one.
You did? What's your major? Do you mind me asking your major, sir?
OT major, but I transferred from like a biology.
Is OT occupational therapy? Oh, okay. So now you're a biology major. Oh, okay. Oh, you're occupational. Okay. So you had to take, okay. So, I mean, if you've done sociology, sociologists love this kind of thing. We're talking about typology. I mean, especially with polythetic definitions, looking for typologies. Tupos. Have you got that down there? Yes. Maybe. Oh yeah, mold. And a mold, a figure, a tupos, a figure, a type, figure of something. And it's really, you know what this is. You already use these ideas, even for sociologists, you know. But say, well, what kind of guy are you looking for? Something like that, you know.
Oh, well, he has to be funny. He has to be rich. He has to be, I don't know, tall. I don't want a short guy. Or maybe I do want a short guy. I like short guys or tall guys. But you're running down the list of what kind of person that you might want to be with, say for marriage or in a relationship or something, whatever. What kind of school do you want to go to? You know, oh, I want to go to a school. It has to be nearby. Tuition should be within this range for me. Other than that, who cares? At least when I've asked students in the past, usually location is the first and only thing. It's close. It's close. And then everything, I'm assuming that's what I was told when I asked this. It's a Catholic school, if that matters to you, your religious bent. Well, I want it to be a Catholic school, not just a secular school. So you have a typology. You have an image of what a university should look like for you and what it should be. You have an image of what your significant other should look like for you and what he or she should, or they, should be like. Typology, standard list of attributes. Doing the same thing here with polythetic definitions. Religion might not just fit into one definition, but it might be, well, if it's a religion and it should have spiritual beings, but it should also have ritual. It should also have, scriptures maybe. But these are all the things I'm looking for in a religion. And if it has these things in it, then I've got it probably. Okay. They're traits that kind of lets me say, I'm looking for a zebra, not for a horse, right? My nursing students, anyone in nursing? Doing nursing? No. I'll be looking people up on portals. Well, I already have. I'm curious to see what you maybe 2 hours. Huh? I can find to a what?
LinkedIn, you go to LinkedIn.
Oh, LinkedIn. No, I don't spy. But I find it helpful sometimes to know, what the majors are, so I can tailor my examples and stuff to speak to the crowd. But yeah, if you have nursing students here, always tell you in the medical field, don't think a horse is a zebra, for diagnosis. When he comes in with had symptoms of the flu, don't assume that it's, Ebola or the plague or something like that, something exotic or weird or unusual, I should say. So don't go looking for a zebra. It's just a horse, So I got my typology, okay? I know but when I see a zebra, I know that's it. That's what I want. And that's what a typology helps us with. So, for example, what is a planet? We're on a planet, right? Aren't we on a planet right now? Maybe. Starship Earth. Yeah. We're not on a planet?
We are.
Oh, we are. Okay. Well, you never know. We might have some flat earthers in the class. So that we're not on a planet. No, we're not on a planet. We're on a disk, a rotating disk. No flat earthers here? All right. Make the conversation a little more interesting, Ms. Rogers, but you work with the crowd that you got, right? Okay, so we're on a planet. On the surface of a planet. What's a planet, Ms. Durant? You're on one. Not sure? Okay, good. You just added something to your topology. It's in space, right? It's in space. You think so?
Yeah,
Planets aren't different sizes?
they are different sizes, but it has to be like a certain.
When you say it, do you mean like a life-bearing planet, or are you just talking about planets in general? Really?
Terminal is Pluto.
Oh, Pluto! God bless you.
Excellent example. Precisely what I was going. Pluto, yeah, Pluto was a planet when I was growing up. And then what, in 2000s, well, maybe before you guys were born, just when some of you guys were toddlers, right? All of a sudden it's not a planet anymore, right? Because like Mr. Durant said, they said it was too small. The astronomers, right? How did they? I'm sorry. How did they know? How did the astronomers know what a planet was? It's called. How did they know that Pluto did not fit the bill?
Is it not mass?
Huh?
Did it have no mass?
Didn't have enough mass. Well, that's interesting. No, that is interesting. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's called. No, that's interesting. Yes, because that's part of the issue. It doesn't. A planet should clear its orbit, right? It should be the biggest thing, and it should be the thing that is the only thing orbiting. But Pluto doesn't really do that, right? Well, Pluto's orbit, it has its own orbit, but it also orbits, I think, in the asteroid field of the Borg planet. So it doesn't really clear its orbit. So its mass is not massive enough to do that. So that's interesting. So they could think about that. What else did how else did the astronomers know that Pluto should not be a planet? Well, I'm just looking at your racer. I'm not trying to count sign. How else do you think they made that it wasn't a planet? Oh.
Oh.
But what do you think a planet should be, Mr. Don't tell me, 'cause I know he's Lynch.
Yeah.
Lynch. Yeah, what do you think a planet should be, Mr. Lynch?
What it is.
What it is. God bless you, sir. Very monothetical. Yeah, but I mean, how do we know that Pluto was not what it is? Yes.
Was it like doing the things that other planets were doing, like orbit fully? Was it like big enough to spot?
So, okay. Pluto does orbit the sun. And you can't see it with the naked eye. You need a telescope. No, don't give up. No, I'm just saying.
The people who study it, they must have said like, okay, like this is the planet, like.
So you think the people who study it should know? Yeah, the astronomers, Okay. No! They did not know. In 2006, was anyone born before 2006 or after? Okay, so you're before 2006. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union, the IAU, which is just like, the guild of all the an international group of astronomers throughout the world, sat down and came up with a definition of what a planet is, because they weren't sure if Pluto should still be granted planet status. There was a big debate at the time. Actually, I think it started in New York City at the, at Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you ever heard of this dude, that's how he got famous. No one heard about Neil deGrasse Tyson, this astrophysicist, until he was the director of a museum, Scientific Museum of Astronomy, and anyways, New York City. And in their exhibit of the planets, he organized the planets in such a way, and Pluto was not part of it. And people noticed, I can't imagine how, because it's probably Americans going there and American. We know science is about as well as we know anything else. But people noticed that, wait, Pluto's not up there. Where's Pluto? Oh, we don't classify that as a planet. And a whole kerfuffle erupted, even among scientists. What do you mean it's not a planet? A planet is but. No, a planet is dit. They had They couldn't come to an agreement. So they had to sit down and they said, a planet is, first of all, naturally occurring. It's naturally occurring. It's not artificially made. It's not an asteroid, like something breaks off of something else, or, rock breaks off of something that's naturally occurring. It's physical. It's a physical object. It's in the observable universe. So, oh no, not you. Who said, oh, you can see it, Ms. Shantice. No. Ms. Griffin, right? No. I'll get it eventually. But yes, it's observable. We can observe it. It's not a moon. It's not a satellite. Like we have a satellite. We have one moon, but other planets. A satellite is orbiting another larger body, like the moon orbits our planet, our Earth. And yes, Ms. Cook, it dominates. Its mass is such that it dominates its orbit around the star. Okay, it clears its path, which Pluto doesn't really do. So until 2006, Mr. Saunders, astronomers had no definition, no hard and fast definition of what a planet was. And yet, well, at least from the time of modern science, which started, well, astronomy in the 1500s, they were doing stuff. They were already making telescopes and stuff. But over the last, let's say half a millennium, astronomers have been looking up with their telescopes at these planets. The Greek word simply means a wanderer, planetes, something that wanders through the sky. Stars don't move, but, well, they do. Everything in the universe moves, okay? But planets wander. They're there tonight, and then tomorrow night when it's dark again and you look up, it's over there, and it's over there, and it's wandered, okay? They're looking at these planets, saying they know what they are, teaching them in their school. People are getting PhDs in astrophysics and assuming all along this is a planet, discovering new planets. I mean, Pluto was discovered in the 20th century. No one knew it was there because it's so far away, you can't see it with the naked eye. But with a telescope, someone was able to see this object that they hadn't seen before moving across the sky. Now, of course, it's not a planet anymore. Well, it's technically, I forget what they're calling it. Not a microplanet or something. It still has planet in its name, but it's not a planet. Dwarf planet. Thank you. Oh, I lost you. I'm losing you. You ready to go? We're almost there. We're almost there. A dwarf planet, So, yeah. Mr. Lynch, this is like hard science, right? Science. And for hundreds of years, decades of the modern time, these dudes didn't, and dudettes, because they're female astronomers too, they didn't know what a planet was until 2006. They made a definition because they had to. They had been assuming all along they all were on the same page. They weren't. And once Neil deGrasse Tyson forced the issue at his museum and said, no, we're not including Pluto amongst the other true planets of our solar system, that just ripped open the whole can of worms. Well, yeah, right, what is a planet? And they all had to get together and decide in 2006. So what, 20 some years ago? No. Which, I must say, Mr. Melendez, as a religious person, tickles pink. I love it when the scientists are all in a kerfuffle. Because, of course, science is truth. Science gives you real knowledge, right? In fact, better than religion, of course. Certainly better than religion. Religion's all over the place. They don't know people of faith don't know what's up and what's down. They change according to the time. But science is trustworthy. Okay. Hey, and I'm not dissing science. Hey, I love astronomy. I'm not an astronomer, but I love learning about it. And I love the physical sciences. Oh no, I'm not down on science at all. But I just find it interesting, because we're talking about religion and violence, right? We're not talking about science and violence, right, Ms. Krauss? And yet, I don't think it was a bunch of Jesuit priests who came up with an atom bomb out in New Mexico. No. Yeah. And then dropped it on people. Twice! Twice. Or develop biological warfare. I mean, little bacteria and diseases that can kill all sorts of people where there's no cure. Well, we have the cure. It's locked away somewhere. The military has it somewhere. But that's what a lot of people, maybe it was dismissed as a conspiracy, but what happened with COVID? That it was some kind of reworking that got out of a lab or people were experimenting with something. Because people do this. They experiment with all sorts of viruses and stuff like that. I remember because I read an article, I think it still happened on my computer years ago about, the concern about how little regulation there is over these programs at universities and companies and stuff. They're doing research into, like, say, dangerous viruses and bacteria, not just how to fight them, but also want to manipulate them and use them maybe, like in warfare or something like that. And, as they're talking about the practices, oh yeah, just put the samples in the fridge, where anyone can get at it, do you have any precautions? Like people can't come in and take the stuff. It's is the fridge locked? No. And what are you dealing with again? Oh, bubonic plague. Yeah, that killed like half of Europe about 1,000 years. I'm experimenting. I'm a researcher. Yes, okay, I get you, sir. Yes, I see. I will stop here. And we will talk more on Thursday. God bless you all.